Hello. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Civil Point podcast. I am your host, none other than Ariana. And guess what? Today we are talking about none other than Charlie Kirk. If you guys haven't already, you guys can hit that subscribe button and also follow me on social media platforms. And we're going to get into it today because the truth is, no one knows what the hell's going on with this Charlie Kirk investigation. No one. Absolutely no one. I love how it was so put forth and forward with transparency when the objective was to make the left look like the culprits of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. There was so much transparency from right-wing media to journal outlets stating that transgender people had something to do with Charlie Kirk's death. When it happened to place the left in the cell, it was total transparency. But now that there are cracks in the foundation of this investigation, and when there's smoke and confusion, there's fire, now the right-wing media has really gone silent about the actual dealings of Charlie Kirk's death. So let's investigate. Let's see what truly happened to Charlie Kirk. Now, am I saying I'm super involved with Charlie Kirk? Absolutely not. I don't care what happened to that man. No offense. But I am interested in the fact that our government plays a huge role in political violence. And I think everyone who follows MAGA and Donald Trump should be very invested in the fact that our government has something to do with the death of Charlie Kirk. Ironically, I think Charlie Kirk knew he was going to get shot on September 10th, 2025. He had every bit of knowledge that a gunshot, a bullet was going to go through some part of his body. But what he didn't know was that it was going to be the last day he spent on Earth under a white tent debating college students about frivolous things that don't truly matter in the grand scheme of life. So, let's get started because there is a lot that I want to cover because there's a lot that does not make sense. And when you logically think out what happened to Charlie Kirk and his assassination, you will understand that there are bigger powers at play here when it comes to political violence. So let's get started. I made a little bullet point list for myself so that way I get through everything. So let's first start with the fact that I think Charlie Kirk knew he was going to get shot on September 10th, 2025. He just didn't know that was going to be his last day on Earth. So the orchestration of it all comes from a darker theory that Erica Kirk, Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, these higher powers at play, knew that he was going to die. Charlie Kirk only knew he was going to get shot. This would elevate him as a messiah figure in the right-wing world, in the United States, in his conservative world of constituents. Him getting shot, just like Donald Trump elevated his political power, it would elevate Kirk to a new level of political power and political voice within the United States. His death now is positioned as a rallying moment for the right. You have right-wing extremists going on Twitter yelling and screaming in their phone cameras saying, "You left are miserable, you left are killers, you left are murderers. We need to go door to door and clean the streets of the United States. We're waiting on Donald Trump to sound the alarm." So when you think about Charlie Kirk's death, when you think about him no longer being on this earth, you also have to think, who truly benefits from Charlie Kirk's death? So I pose that question to you. Who truly benefits from Charlie Kirk's death? I'm going to get into that. But first, I want to take a look at the shooter, Tyler James Robinson. I find it ironic for a young guy, Tyler James Robinson has virtually no digital footprint. For a man who is young, he has virtually no digital footprint in regards to really social media. And that's concerning to me because as a young person, young people naturally have social media. So the fact that this is non-existent is a red flag to me. Why is a young man who is just coming out in this way, in a way to shoot someone, have no history of social media that tells us where his values and morals lie? It's a red flag to me. Yes, he may have had a manifesto, but where is his digital footprint? It's either it was erased prior to Charlie Kirk shooting, or if he never had one, he was specifically chosen for this job to scapegoat the LGBT community as the shooters, as the aggressors, as the assassinators of Charlie Kirk. Those are only one of two options. Either he was chosen or he was chosen. So that's something that I have a question about. Why would someone with no online presence suddenly carry out a high-profile assassination? It doesn't add up to me. The math is not mathin'. Especially when you think of the day and age we are in, to get access to even deep state content like the right has access to, they usually are very vocal about where they stand. They're usually very vocal about how they act in regards to feelings on political landscapes and things like that. So why does this one have no digital footprint? It only points to two things. He was either groomed or he was hired for this. So when we talk about the shooter, Tyler Robinson, we also have to think of the contradictions and the media spins on this. Family politics. Tyler's grandmother publicly stated that the family was MAGA aligned. He was right-wing aligned. Now, that could also mean that, he may have diverted off, but there's no proof for some, and this is where a digital footprint comes into play, that if you are so against the MAGA base that your family is invested into, I'm pretty sure your social medias would reflect your progressive views. And the fact that he has no social media readily available and virtually no digital footprint is concerning to me. He was either hired or groomed to take the fall for this shooting that I think Charlie Kirk knew he was going to get shot, but he did not know he was going to die on that day. I find it also funny in regards to the right-wing media spin is that they are desperately trying to link the LGBTQ plus community, specifically trans people, to the assassination of Charlie Kirk with no evidence, absolutely zero evidence to prove that Charlie Kirk was murdered by LGBTQ plus vigilantes. The shooting spotlights Tyler's roommate and potential lover as being trans with no evidence. They also pushed trans ideology narratives about Tyler without facts. As well as, if you look at it, there is a lack of confession. Tyler did not inherently confess to this crime of killing Charlie Kirk. He did not confess to this crime of murder. There's no confession from Tyler about Charlie Kirk. There's no clear public evidence tying him directly to the act beyond his initial claims. As well as if you look at the videos, I mean, there's no clear video or surveillance video of Tyler actually shooting Charlie Kirk. You would think at a campus that's covered and has cameras, there would be some sort of actual footage of that gun going off, a shot and a bullet traveling through the air and hitting Charlie Kirk. But ironically, there's no CCTV footage of this. That's another red flag for moi. So when you look at the foggy facts of all of this, the crime scene is still unclear. There's no transparent ballistics, no definitive official timeline in regards, and even the timeline that the FBI has provided is murky. It does not actually align. And Candace Owens put this, and I'm not over here quoting Candace Owens, I'm not the biggest fan of her, but her timeline and the FBI timeline does not match up, as she stated in her videos. It just doesn't match up with the shirts and the change of clothes and where he is and where he was. It's just, there's foggy facts about the whole investigation. So when there's smoke and confusion, there's obviously a fire. There's obviously a cover-up. The fact that they pushed this narrative that trans people are aggressive and trans people had everything to do with Charlie Kirk's murder with no evidence, and the fact that Tyler Robinson's own past and family contradicted the stance of left-wing aggression, it leaves nothing but true confusion and no facts to back up the claims that Kirk was assassinated due to political violence. Instead, it leans more towards the side of Kirk was assassinated due to political affiliation, from his own political affiliation. So, why this matters to this theory, why this matters to my theory, when you have the media rushing to link trans people to a crime, not even just one trans person, but a group of trans people, a marginalized group of people, it's giving nothing but manufactured scapegoating. The shooter's actual ties to MAGA undercuts the narrative that the media tried to immediately build with no credible evidence. And this is where the media is again at fault. I don't understand how the media has had inside sources prior to when the FBI didn't even have ballistics. The FBI didn't even have evidence. The FBI didn't even have an investigation fully, let alone partially, let alone barely started. But our news outlets had information regarding this. It seems very manufactured and set up. Not all news outlets, but definitely one specific, the Wall Street Journal, and I will get into that. As well as there's no confession, and it's murky evidence, room for all alternative reasoning and explanation. So, now, when we get into the juice of it, no pun intended, the shot and the crime scene, this is very odd to me. So when I initially saw that video on September 10th, 2025, I looked at that video and I was just like, damn, that was brutal. That was a straight assassination. But then I really got to thinking about it. And when I started to assess the video in my mind, playing it back, I'm just like, there are things weird that stand out about the video and the angle that I saw. At first, you're just looking at it like, oh my God, someone got killed. This is horrible. Like, what is going on? Like, wow, that gunshot wound was something serious. And then you start actually assessing it, and you're just like, wait, this didn't make sense. This didn't make sense. This didn't make sense. The first thing that doesn't make sense to me about Charlie Kirk's assassination is that Charlie Kirk was shot in his neck. He was shot right in his neck. And that's honestly an odd target, especially from a distance. And I say this because the body is such a vast target. And if you are shooting someone from a distance and you're looking to kill point blank, you're shooting at major targets, like a heart, like a head. You're shooting at these major targets if you're looking to effectively end someone's life. Yet, there was a gunshot to the neck. It just doesn't add up for me. It's an odd target, and I think something messed up with the shot. But maybe something didn't mess up with the shot. Because maybe the shooter wasn't the shooter, and maybe the shooter was behind Charlie Kirk. And this is where the theory of forensics and the forensic questions comes into play. The entrance and exit wound of the bullet. So now that I'm assessing that video I saw, there's theories that come around that say the bullet was from behind. And the view that we saw, the angle we saw an exit wound of a bullet, not an entrance wound of the bullet. And when I think of that, I'm just like, well, that could be a possibility. Because that was a lot of blood to be an entrance wound. A lot of blood. And I'm not a forensics. I don't know ballistics. But from my own personal viewpoint, if something is entering, especially a bullet, it's not going to create a wound that automatically just like spouts blood the way it did. If it's very odd for a bullet to enter and then spout blood. If it enters and then drips blood, that's more likely. Now, obviously, the high velocity, the speed of the bullet, things like that come into effect. But when you look at the actual footage of this, that blood just spouts out like it's an exit wound. And I assessed and I was like, well, that makes sense. It kind of does look like an exit wound. And it possibly could be. He possibly could be shot from behind. So when we talk about the crime scene, let's talk about the manipulation of the crime scene. When Charlie was shot, he went down from his chair. I don't know the exact time frame here, but apparently, well, not apparently, because this is on tape, on camera, but there was potential tampering of evidence. And why I'm saying the shot from behind makes sense is because nothing other than the camera that was above Charlie Kirk that faced the audience, that had it to his back. Now, this is a long stretch, but what if that camera was not a camera? Why haven't we gotten footage from that angle? If the FBI has that footage of Charlie Kirk from behind, why isn't it readily available to us? So, my theory is that camera, that faux camera, possibly could have been the actual gun that shot Charlie Kirk. And that makes sense. I mean, it's easy. You don't have anyone else to possibly get injured or hurt, but it causes and incites a whole violence, political violence. So, his tech guy not only took the chair Charlie Kirk was in, which is weird, placed it in front of that camera, stood on that chair, and took that camera down. Is that not weird? I feel like that's a weird. If someone I cared about, someone I worked for, got shot, I would not be worrying about cameras and this and that and the third. I would be assessing what just happened. So that's just another red flag in the situation. So The FBI reported timeline, the ballistics delayed, but media had instant narratives, and the tampering of the crime scene itself, it just all seems very, very, very fishy, very red flaggy. Something's not adding up. Something's not, the math is not mathing. The dots are not connecting. We're not connecting the four here. So when we think about it, we have to think of now the red flags that I just pointed out between the shooter, the shot, the crime scene. It all does not truly add up. There's too much confusion. And when there's confusion, there's only one true answer, and only probably a few people have that true answer. Yes, there's always three sides to the story: his side, her side, and the truth. And our government knows the truth about what happened to the death and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So when we think of the objective, you have to think of the people that will benefit from this, the narrative that will be pushed. Who benefits and what is the objective of Charlie Kirk being assassinated? If you think about it, the left, any sort of left-wing media outlets, any sort of left-wing coalitions, Antifa, they don't have anything to gain from Charlie Kirk being dead. They don't have anything to gain because Charlie Kirk's voice and presence has already ruffled through the United States. So his voice and message will continue to be there. So the left taking it to that extent, anyone on the left, whether an extremist or a centrist, it just doesn't add up. So the objective, in my opinion, my theory, is right-wing media blamed the left within minutes, which is very weird, with no evidence. Not only just right-wing influencers on TikTok, right? No, I'm talking about major media outlets like the Wall Street Journal immediately blamed the left. Major cable news like Fox immediately blamed the left with no evidence, with no transparency. That is odd to me, because as a journalist, you're supposed to uncover the truth and report the truth, even though we know that in today's day and age, facts don't matter. It's all about perception. It's weird how quick the narrative was pushed out into the world. So the Wall Street Journal framed it as the bullet casings had transgender ideology on the bullets. And this was before the FBI ballistics report, before the FBI even conducted a full investigation. Somehow the Wall Street Journal had a source telling them that the bullets had transgender ideology on that, which was total lies and fabrications. And then the Wall Street Journal had to walk that back because it was not true. There was no evidence of this. And the FBI even came out and said, hey, we have no evidence of this. So why is the Wall Street Journal, a nationally publicized paper, putting out information like this? It just does not make sense. So when you think about the narrative pushed, the left-wing extremist is a direct threat. So this is a possible red flag attempt to incite outrage and civil discourse and unrest. Look at the facts of it. Look at the facts. If you're pushing a narrative to scapegoat a group of people with no evidence, you're literally pushing a narrative for a reason, and that reason is to target and demonize and create civil unrest for that group of people, for that marginalized group of people. So, I want to talk about how this all backfired for MAGA, how this all backfired for the right. The shooter had MAGA family roots. And we know that to be a fact. Tyler Robinson had MAGA family roots. His grandmother came out and said, their family was MAGA, right? So if there's MAGA family roots, whoever hired this man did not do a good job in wiping his slate clean to make it look like he had anything to do with the left. Okay? Also, it undermined the blame the left narrative because we have proof that Tyler Robinson was in association with MAGA. Instead of uniting the right, it fractured credibility and raised more questions. So now we have to look at who actually gains and profits and benefits off of someone, a high politicized assassination and death. Who gains and benefits and profits from this? Because I already explained it's not the left. The left has nothing to benefit or profit from when it comes to the death of specifically Charlie Kirk, because his voice, his ideologies ripples through the United States as it is. I'm pretty sure logically the left knows that this would not be good for the progression of our country. So when you think about it, who benefits from Charlie Kirk's death? Well, let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about Trump gaining martial law and now the death penalty in the United States. That's a pretty big gain, I would say, in my opinion. That's literally enacting legislation to kill people on merit of legalities. So, Trump gets the justification to impose martial law and emergency rule when violence breaks out. Now, violence didn't break out when Charlie Kirk passed away. Thank God it did not. I think what stopped that is the investigation into the shooter. And when the shooter was now named and associated with MAGA, the left was able to be like, hey, we had nothing to do with this. You need to fix this in your own camp. So now that the right had no one to blame but their own ideologies, it dismantled the whole argument and their whole foundation that the left is evil. The left is the problem. The left is the aggressor. So, yes, he did not get to impose martial law because the civil unrest discourse did not turn into political violence where it was nationwide and there was riots and fights breaking out. It disrupted the plan that MAGA was associated with Tyler Robinson. But if the plan went to play, Tyler Robinson was not discovered to be any part of an association with MAGA, and the narrative that our media put out there was successful, that it was transgender ideology and LGBTQ plus ideology and left-wing-ism that diluted Tyler Robinson, then yes, this would have caused civil unrest and possibly violence in our streets, thus enacting martial law as per Donald Trump, as he wanted to do since day one in his presidency, because he's not a president, he's an authoritarian, he's a dictator, he is a tyrant. So with the unrest in major blue states, he can then send the National Guard and federal forces under the pretext of restoring order. He's already taken steps forward to federal control of D.C., which he has done successfully. He's brought in the National Guard, and he basically override any local authority. He uses the terms crime emergency to uphold his positions as president to then send National Guard in to DC. He used the same crime emergency when it comes to California. And it was deemed that it was unconstitutional for him to do that because technically Congress has that power, not the president solely. But he doesn't think he's a president. He thinks he's a dictator. On September 25th, Trump signed a proclamation basically enacting and reinstated the death penalty in certain DC criminal cases, as well as if the DOJ deems dissent or a protest as criminal acts, the death penalty becomes a legal tool to eliminate political opponents. So, isn't it funny how now Kirk is murdered, assassinated, and now Trump is able to go in and say, we're going to enact the death penalty for any criminal cases that we find need the death penalty. It's weird. It's weird, and it lines up. And it's not national. It has to do with criminal cases, and obviously there's legalities that go beyond that. But with the temperature and the political landscape we're in, where Donald Trump is literally now indicting James Comey at the behest of himself, not because there's any crimes committed and investigated on, but at the behest of himself, he's indicting James Comey through a Virginia district attorney. This adds up to nothing but political violence from our president of the United States. He's literally targeting his political enemies. It's all a gameplay. It's all a game plan. There was one misstep in this Charlie Kirk shooting, but everything seems to be going according to plan, other than somehow finally getting martial law into the streets of the United States, mostly the blue states. So when combined with the martial law, the death penalty, all these dual threats, military enforcement, legal executions, it's providing the groundwork, even though it's no longer foundation or groundwork. It's practically the huge ballroom that's being built outside of the White House that's bigger than the White House. It's literally giving dictator in democracy. That's what it's giving. So let's talk about Charlie Kirk's role and threat, because this is where my theory gets a little bit complicated, and it involves not only domestic forces but international forces. And this is why I say I think Charlie Kirk knew he was going to get shot. I think it was a plan. I think that he thought he was going to survive, but plans changed. And when plans changed, he did not personally know he was not going to make it out of that gunshot. So, Charlie Kirk's role and threat. Let's talk about it. Charlie Kirk is a major right-wing influencer in the political landscape, in the political universe, in the social sphere. Many powerful figures like Donald Trump and politicians throughout the United States have benefited from his platform, used his voice and his reach to peddle policies and narratives throughout our country to help guide young men through the early years of their adulthood and life, to teach them how to be a good man, a faithful Christian, God-fearing man. So many powerful figures benefited from his reach, from his audience. Initially, the plan floated to stage an attack. That's my opinion. That's my theory. It's a staged attack or shooting that Charlie would survive, creating a martyr narrative without a death. Just like Donald Trump survived his shooting to his ear, he became a martyr to the President of the United States because people viewed him with not only sympathy, but then power, because he survived an attempted shooting and God specifically saved him because he's supposed to be in that White House. So it's seen as a win-win for the right. They get to energize the base, blame the left, and then tighten control. So this is where the international factor comes into it. Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. I have listened to Candace, but not too much. But I do think Benjamin Netanyahu played a significant role in Charlie Kirk's death. And I'm going to stand 10 toes down on that, because Charlie started criticizing Israel, criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu, criticizing the actions that are going on in that area of the world, that thus shifting his rhetoric to supporting Israel, to now opting to denounce Israel's actions. Benjamin Netanyahu would have viewed Charlie's influence as a direct threat if it turned against Israel. With the strong base that Charlie Kirk has formed and how powerful his voice and opinion was, Benjamin Netanyahu could not allow someone in the United States to try and dictate how he is viewed worldwide. If Kirk's voice began persuading right-wing audiences against Israel, it could undermine decades of alliances and funding. And already, the 2025/end of 2024, we've been seeing a rise in anti-Israeli actions because they have been committing nothing but genocide in Gaza and Palestine. Like, it's literal genocide. So if Charlie Kirk started now denouncing Israel, that could take a huge hit to Israel. That could take a huge hit to Benjamin Netanyahu. So Trump's role in this is that I believe Trump, allegedly beholden to powerful authoritarian dictators and leaders and donors, he has to take order from them. And this is why I say Donald Trump is compromised as president of the United States, because he is cuddling up with dangerous dictators that he is way in over his head trying to think he can deal with, because he can't. Putin ran over him. Putin had Donald Trump roll out a red carpet for him in Alaska. No U.S. president would ever think of doing that. Yet Donald Trump cuddling up with Putin is just normalcy? It's not. So, I'm talking a lot. All right. So, when you talk about Netanyahu and Trump is emboldened and embedded in Netanyahu's two ass cheeks. So Netanyahu, seeing Kirk as a risk, would then allegedly pressure Trump to neutralize him. The plan was enacted, but instead of surviving, Charlie died, which changed the entire narrative. The twist is, Charlie believed that he would survive this shooting. Charlie was under the impression, hey, I'm going to survive this, so I think this is good. It's benefit. It's win-win here. I get more publicity. I get more sympathy. I get to be looked at as the martyr who survived a gunshot, just like President Trump, where two peas in the same pod were chosen by God to lead. But powerful figures planned otherwise. The plan was enacted, but the plan was changed unbeknownst to Charlie Kirk. He was going to die that day, and he did not know that. But he did know he was going to get shot. So the result is a high-profile death, a blamed scapegoat, which is the left, and a political fallout within the United States causing civil discourse, thus allowing Donald Trump to enact martial law in the streets of blue states, democratic states, as he's always wanted to do since the beginning of this presidency. So the end game of this is that Netanyahu, the threat of a major U.S. conservative voicing turning audiences against Israel, is gone. So he's free from this potential threat of Charlie Kirk turning large conservative bases and audiences against what is going on in Israel and what Israel is doing to Palestine and Gaza, committing genocide against children, kids, and babies, and bombing hospitals. That now threat is neutralized. Trump gains politically motivated scapegoat, being the left, or more specifically, trans people in the LGBTQ plus community, and he can justify emergency measures and martial law. Charlie Kirk is now immortalized as a martyr. He is now shut up. His actual ideologies are now thriving more than when he was alive, which align with Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. And now he can be looked at as not only an ideological man, but he can be looked at as a good Christian man, a good husband, a good father. And we're going to now forget all the hateful, disgusting rhetoric that he put forth, such as his misogynistic comments, such as his racist comments. It's all censored. We no longer can talk about that anymore. So even criticizing or even mentioning Charlie Kirk's bigoted statements became a threat to where now Donald Trump needed to neutralize that. We can't have people talking about the racist things Charlie Kirk said. So we're going to use our political power and our government control that has been centralized to the President of the United States, now dictator of the United States, and we're going to silence people. We're going to get people canceled. We're going to get people fired from their jobs, everyday people. We're also going to use our power to now abuse the Constitution and rip away the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, and we're going to get TV shows like Jimmy Fallon canceled and taken off the air, and we're going to use the FCC to do it and threaten action like mob bosses. It's insanity. Not only that, but who out of all these people that benefit, Netanyahu, Trump, Charlie Kirk, even Charlie Kirk's wife benefits. I mean, she's now the, I think, CEO of Turning Point, which was the company he founded or something like that. The Christian prosecution narrative, the Christian persecution narrative then thrives. Oh, the left is after us. They're using political violence to shoot down people who are speaking the truth. Evangelicals can now claim that Christians are being targeted through political violence. And at this point, if that narrative was able to stick, if MAGA was not associated with Tyler Robinson, we would be in a different state of the world right now. And I can guarantee you that right now, we would be having an authoritarian shift in our government and in our day-to-day lives. Right now, if MAGA influences wasn't associated with Tyler Robinson. So now, if we look at the blame shifting, the left, particularly the LGBTQ plus community, is painted as the aggressor and the enemy to the persecution story. So the authoritarian shift now uses more people to nationalize around Christianity. It dissents against any sort of document dissent against Christianity and provides a legal framework for law and order to replace covert action. So altogether, if you look at who benefits from Charlie Kirk's death, it is not the left. It is completely everyone on the right. The high powers that be on the right benefit from Charlie Kirk's death. Think about that. Think about that. Why would someone from the left senselessly kill Charlie Kirk knowing that his ideologies are through the veins of the deepest parts of the red states of the United States? There's no gain for killing Charlie Kirk on the left. There's complete and utter political gain and narrative-driven gain if the right takes out Charlie Kirk, one of their own. So what I want to end on too, which is another major red flag for me, is the fact that the federal response and FBI conclusions and confusion around Charlie Kirk's murder. FBI Director Kash Patel even came out and said that he has no actual evidence as to what truly happened to Charlie Kirk, and he's actually investigating conspiracy theories as potential leads to close this case. Our FBI director is investigating conspiracy theories to close a case about an assassination of a political prospect. Why are you investigating conspiracy theories? That means you have no theory of your own, and the investigation that you have been doing for the past 2 weeks has no direction. Which means also that Tyler Robinson probably has nothing to do with the murder of Charlie Kirk. If you're investigating conspiracy theories, if your actual evidence is so ironclad that Tyler Robinson did this, you would not be investigating conspiracy theories. And even if you were investigating conspiracy theories, Kash Patel, guess what? You wouldn't be stating that nationally. That looks so incompetent, like you have no idea what the hell is going on. And honestly, you don't, because your eyes go like this every time you talk. So, this is a red flag. It's a red flag. How do you not know what you're investigating, let alone not know the direction your investigation is going when you have someone in custody for allegedly committing a murder? Red flag, confusion, fire, smoke, there's an issue, okay? So this signals that they have no clear understanding on what actually happened. And honestly, it just looks like incompetence of an extremely compromised Department of Justice for the United States. It's not a good look for the United States and our director of the FBI saying, well, we're investigating conspiracy theories. Where's your actual evidentiary theories? Where's your actual investigation notes? Where is these actual evidence that previous FBI directors and everyone in our justice system provides to have any sort of a conclusive evidentiary case against an actual suspect who is in custody? It just does not make sense. It's intentionally obstructing the narrative and transparency to the American people. Not only that, but you try to manufacture a scapegoat in trans people for the death of Charlie Kirk when you don't even have an actual clue as to what happened in the death of Charlie Kirk. This shows how incompetent this administration is. So, in all, my theory is that very few people know what happened to Charlie Kirk. And those very few people are high elites in our government, are high elites internationally. Because the only ones that benefit from the death of Charlie Kirk are the likes of Trump, are the likes of the right Christian nationalists, are the likes of Benjamin Netanyahu, and are the likes of evil people that you guys support and put into office. And that is the God's honest, whole, Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit truth. You killed Charlie Kirk, not anyone on the left. You people who voted for Donald Trump to be a dictator killed Charlie Kirk. So, that is my theory on Charlie Kirk. That's my theory on his murder. These are allegeds, but it does make a lot of sense when you think about the gunshot, the entrance and exit wound, when you think of no evidence that puts Tyler Robinson no clear evidence or factual evidence that puts Tyler Robinson as the murderer. I mean, there's just so many red flags and bumps in the road and smoke that it's unclear how our Department of Justice, our FBI director, does not know what the hell is going on. Anyway, guys, I am going to get out of here. If you guys haven't, you guys can go ahead and subscribe right now. And we will continue coverage on Charlie Kirk's murder because I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot more information in the coming weeks. And again, I don't support Charlie Kirk, but I am curious as to why he was murdered. There's no clear motive, and I want to know the exact motive as to why Charlie Kirk was murdered. And we are going to get to that. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of the Civil Point Podcast. I'm your host, Ariana, and have a good night.